What's up, duelists? Today I've got a very special banger video for you guys, but before we get into the banger video, just a little bit of an update on the RBET schedule. The announcement had the wrong dates for the first online tournament. The first online tournament's actually on March 2nd and 3rd. If you guys want to play in the online events, you can join the Really Big Yu-Gi-Oh! Discord in the description below. And if you want to sign up for the IRL events, these are going to be the biggest Edison tournaments in person all year. The prizes are fucking insane. They're like actually crazy. You can click the links in the description to either the Feel Good Gaming site for the RBET in Maryland or the Google sign up thing for the RBET New York at Collectors Emporium in the description below. Honestly, guys, if you want to play in these tournaments, last year every single RBET that I threw sold out. So you don't want to miss your chance to sign up. I think even for Orlando, I had like maybe 40 or 50 people messaging me after it sold out, like, hey man, I forgot to sign up, or hey man, I already booked my flight and I didn't sign up. And it's just like, well, you didn't get the sign up in, then there's nothing I can do at that point. I mean, the venue gets full. That's all we can do. So if you guys want to play in these events and you take Edison format pretty seriously, these are going to be the premier events this year. And yeah, definitely sign up sign up as soon as you can, because they will sell out. That's what I think, at least. All right, so today's video is actually a banger video. A lot of you guys may know Swaggr, aka Juan, aka Swaggr. He's a really strong player. He's topped some YCSs. He's like really powerful. I don't know his accolades off the top of my head. I don't even know my own accolades off the top of my head. Bro, I don't even know what day it is. Is it Friday? I don't even know. It could be Saturday for all I know. Anyway, he hits me up. He texts me. He's like, yo, I want to play something fresh. I want to play something new. What do you got for me? And I'm like, you should play Dragons. Play the Warrior Lady build. And then he's like, what do you think of this list? And he texts me a screenshot of my list. And I'm like, well, I think it's pretty good. So he sent me this blurry ass screenshot. And I was like, it looks pretty good to me. This is a really powerful deck. So what he did was he took it to a tournament. And I'm not going to spoil anything about the tournament, but I've got actually a replay for you guys of him playing in that tournament, which we're going to go over and watch and kind of see. I haven't watched it yet, so I'm excited to see him playing this deck. This is one of my favorite decks in Edison format. This is actually, I think, one of the best decks in Edison format. I would rank this deck high tier 1. It has very few bad matchups. It has a lot of really insane auto win draws where you just like activate Future Fusion, of course. Those are the big auto win draws. But yeah, no, this deck is just crazy. The way it works is you try to control the resources, like put both players on really low resources, and then force them to out repeated red meds and force them to out repeated Dragos. And it's just really difficult to do that when you're operating on like 2 or 3 cards. And the way you force people to low resources is you play a metric fuck ton of spot removal. So you play triple D prison, so that's 3. Double bottomless, that's 5 spot removal. You got smashing around, that's 6. You got solemn, that's 7. You got mirror force torrential, 8, 9 spot removal. You got brain control, kinda 10. Lightning vortex, kinda 11. And then you've got Rhoda 12 for 3 DD Warrior Ladies. That is 13 through 15 copies of spot removal. And then you also have 2 Mass Dragons, which is 16, 17, and Exploder Dragon, 18 pieces of spot removal. And that's not even counting Book of Moon or destroying things by battle. So yes, there's roughly 18 to 19 pieces of spot removal, and you just trade down till both players have very little. And when both players are operating with very little, the dragon deck grinds really well because Wyvern is like a 2-for-1. It kills something up front, or it trades for something, or it trades with like a Mirror Force or a Torrential or something like that. And then it brings out a better card, which is Red Eyes. So you get 2 monsters for the price of 1 with Wyvern. Technically even 3 monsters, because if you have even another dragon, then that Red Eyes can bring out that dragon. So in the late game, when both players have very little things they're working with, Wyvern becomes a 3-for-1. And then also Future Fusion is a +5. So, I mean, you have some insane ways to really go over the top once you've put both players on very few cards. And that's just kind of the game plan of this deck. DD Warrior Lady was an innovation that me and ProStorm made with this deck almost 2 years back now. I think it's been like a year and a half ago. And it's just so good in this deck. It's so ridiculous. It doesn't conflict with the Totem Dragons because it banishes, doesn't hit the grave. Sideboard plays directly into that game plan where you have a boatload of spot removal. Almost everything in the sideboard is spot removal. The only thing that isn't are the Cyber Dragons for machines. That matchup is tough. They can also come in versus Hero Beat. That matchup is not great. It's probably the worst of all of the top tier matchups for this deck because it's not a bad matchup, but Drago doesn't lock out absolute zero. So you have a weird, like, kind of late game where both players are, like, kind of top decking, but they have Miracle Fusion and you have Red Eyes, and it's, like, a weird sort of thing. But then they can also have Royal Oppression in game one and Skill Drain, which can be a little bit annoying, and they also have Honest. So they have a lot of weird ways to sort of approach this, but I think the matchup's not as bad as it used to be before the DD Warrior Ladies. I think with the DD Warrior Ladies, it gets a lot better. But yeah, you got the 2 Cyber Dragons, which can come in versus Machines, Hero Beat, and then you got Light and Darkness and 2 Oppressions, and those are just to floodgate people out of the game. You could also, in the past, I was not playing Pulling the Rugs because this was before the Pulling the Rug reprint, and I didn't want to buy them. I actually played, I believe, 1 copy of Rivalry of Warlords, 1 copy of Dark Bribe, and 1 copy of Mask of Restrict. And the game plan would be just to have Floodgates plus like an additional Dark Bribe to defend the Floodgates in a lot of matchups. And that was pretty solid game plan. It worked pretty well. Rivalry helps you versus decks like Quick Draw, and occasionally versus decks like Frogs. And Mask of Restrict obviously is very good versus Frogs. Anyway, let's go ahead and hop over to the tournament coverage. Big shout out to Totagon Plays. Follow him on YouTube and Twitch. He actually makes some of my favorite content. He's one of the few Edison content creators who I regularly tune into because he is constantly covering tournament matches in paper. And I love paper matches, and I love tournament matches. So definitely check out Totagon Plays. And this is the match here. It's not going to be him versus Totagon. He's actually going to be playing versus, I believe, is he playing versus Totagon? Is this what's happening? Is this I feel like this is not what's happening here. I think the thing hasn't been quite updated yet. I think he's playing against Israel, who is another really strong player. Let me skip forward. Where does he update the? I think he updates it soon. We'll get to that in a second. I think he's playing up against Israel, and yeah, he opens up with turn 1 Future Fusion going first, and this kind of just showcases the strength of the deck. Sometimes you open up with this card that immediately wins you the game, and you got to showcase it. Like, that's like, this is why people play this deck. You have I think it's a pretty high chance of opening either Future Fusion or Gold Sark in your hand. I think it's like something between 38 and like 40% to open it. You can also play Upstart Goblins in this deck. I don't. And the reason I don't is because it can mess up a lot of your OTK setups. The life points actually do matter quite a bit. And the Upstart Goblins don't increase your percentage of opening specifically Future Fusion by more than 1%. I think it's like slightly over a 1% increase in seeing Future Fusion in your opening hand. And I feel like the 1% increase of opening Future Fusion is not worth fucking up all your OTKs for a large percentage of the game. So that's pretty much my approach to it. Anyway, Future Fusion activated. He's going to send double Wyvern, Drago, and White Knight. So this is, usually you don't want to send this setup. Usually, like, your average setup, you want to send on turn 1. So let's talk about this for a second, because I see a lot of people fuck this up, especially, like, newer players. If you Future Fusion and you only send 2 Wyverns and a Red Med, it's not bad, right? It's obviously very good, but it's also not, like, insane. It doesn't give you that insane grind potential of sending 3 Wyverns or a Totem Dragon or that type of thing. And if they manage to, like, have one of the setups that can break this, let's say, like, Instant Fusion Caius, which is a pretty common going second way to break up boards in a pretty commonly played meta deck, then if that's the way they break it up, or let's say they have a Blackwing like Shura Kalut, you know what I mean, Shura Whirlwind, that kind of doesn't do so well here for this type of setup, because you send a Drago and a White Knight, and those cards are not that great in your graveyard. You'd almost rather draw into those and have a Totem Dragon in your graveyard. Whereas now you have Totem Dragons in your deck, and you don't have White Knight Dragon in your deck, and so you're more likely to draw into what am I saying? Totem Dragons than you are to draw into actual payoff cards, which is pretty bad. So the turn 1 send I actually like to send the most, game 1, is triple Wyvern, Red Eyes, and 1 Totem Dragon. Additionally, if you've drawn a Totem Dragon or if you've drawn your third Wyvern or something like that, you can adjust accordingly. But usually if they have not sent a single Totem Dragon, I feel as though that is a mistake. Generally speaking, you want to get Totem Dragon in grave early and often because it means that your red meds off the top and your White Knight Dragons off the top are great draws. And if they do answer your red med, you can immediately crack back with threatening a huge dragon on the follow-up turn. So getting Totem Dragon into grave early and often is pretty important. Now, if you look at Swaggr's hand, he's got Heavy Storm, he's got Deep Prison, he's got Space Typhoon, I believe, and he's got another Wyvern. So that explains why he didn't send the Wyvern. But him not having a single Totem Dragon in his deck and not sending one here is I would go as far to say it's a misplay. I would definitely keep the White Knight Dragon in the deck, and I would possibly even keep the Drago in the deck because you just don't know what your opponent's playing, and I would send 2 Totem Dragons in place. That way, also, your Future Fusion in the grind games, it's giving you a +4 instead of a +2, which is what's happening here. And then if you think about it, right, like, let's say the red med does stick around in the best case scenario, then you can just bring back Wyverns and pressure your opponent that way. Like, the difference between bringing back a Wyvern and bringing back a White Knight is not that big of a difference, if you think about it in terms of, like, pressuring your opponent and having red med in play. But the difference between having Totem Dragon off the top versus having White Knight Dragon off the top with Totem Dragon and Grave is massive. So, bit of a mistake here from Swaggr. Let's see if it ends up even mattering. If his opponent can't answer this Red Eyes, I mean, it's going to be curtains pretty quick. So, draw for turn from Israel. He's got Kalut in hand. So he's got a way to break up this Red Eyes. He's going to fire off an Allure of Darkness. Israel's also a strong player. I believe he has topped multiple RBETs. I could be wrong about that. He might have only topped one. Anyway, here comes the Heavy Storm. Looks like it's Blackwings versus Dragons here. So Heavy Storm going to clear up both Bottomless and Future Fusion. But that is also nice for Swaggr because now his Heavy Storm is looking pretty good. Vayu hits the Banish Zone from Allure. He's got a Bora here, and he can Bora plus Kalut, and that's going to deal 300 damage to Swaggr. So Swagger's going to drop down to 7,700, and he's going to set 2 back row here. Heavy Storm is going to be the response from Israel. So both players opening up like pretty insane power spells, but when both players are opening insane, the Dragon deck is just better than anything else. So like if you stack your best draw against anyone else's best draw, the Dragon deck beats everybody else's. So he's asking about Wyvern. He's like, what did you send? Probably something like that. He's going to go ahead and Wyvern attack. Now this Wyvern attack is pretty good. It can bait another Kalut. But it's a little bit awkward, you know? Like if you look at this situation, like if he has another Kalut, then he can't Wyvern end phase. He's just like looking at taking a bajillion damage. And if he doesn't have a Kalut, he could even just save it if he has something like a Blizzy in hand. So kind of an awkward situation to be in here for Swaggr. But Heavy Storm is gone, and that's pretty much the best case scenario for you in a deck that plays usually 12 to 13 traps. He's going to pass the turn back. Swagger's going to draw for turn. Not a single normal summon from Israel is pretty unlucky. He only has a few cards remaining, I believe. Bora, Kalut, Heavy Storm, Oppression, Bottomless was 5 cards, so he only had one other card from the previous turn. And so he's just going to be forced to set a back row and pass the turn back. And the pressure is going to start building up here. If Swaggr is able to bring out this Red Eyes in the end phase, which he is going to be able to do, that Legacy of Yugioh going to be pretty strong. It's going to force a Space Typhoon there. So that's pretty good. I actually really do like Legacy of Yugioh. I do also like that Israel has the Secret Rare ones. They look gorgeous. So shout out to him for having a beautiful deck. I really do like Legacy of Yugioh and Blackwings. I think it's like one of the best cards you can play in like Blackwings because it digs towards Black Whirlwind, it digs towards Dark Arm, Brain Control, like your power cards, and it also baits back row removal. Like you have to remove back row against Blackwings. You can't afford to play into Royal Oppression or whatever Icarus attacks. So when people see a lone set back row, they're like, oh, this is my chance to pop it before that's a live Icarus, and then they pop it and it's Legacy. And then also Legacy can draw you into interaction. It can draw you into Kalut. The deck does play hand traps, so it's a pretty slick card in this. I think it's really good. I think it's really, really good. Anyway, end phase, he's going to activate the Wyvern and bring out the Red Eyes. So this is pretty big, but even now, one Blizzy can sort of come back. One Blizzy here could be a problem. It's not like the end of the world, but it is a little bit of a problem. If he goes like Bryonic, bounce the Red Eyes, run over the Wyvern, and then Swaggr fails to find stuff. And that's why you want to have access to Totem Dragons in the grave, because think of the grind potential here if he's forced to go Bryonic, bounce the Red Eyes. Like, think about the grind potential. It's like so good. Like, if he goes Bryonic, bounce the Red Eyes, whatever, run over the Wyvern, and you don't have another normal summon, then you just Totem back, special the Red Eyes, and the game ends. Like, it's just so good to get that Totem in grave early and often. As it stands, it's a little bit risky. And now Israel's got 3 cards to work with. He is up against 5 cards, but Blackwings is, I would say, amongst the best decks in the format at doing stuff on low resources and breaking up boards. He is going to swing into a Deep Prison, and that's going to show off kind of the ability of the spot removal in these aggro mirrors. Because this deck plays the highest number of spot removal, it plays DD Warrior Ladies Deep Prisons out the ass. You have 8 generic banishes, if you're not counting Rhoda. And you can very easily just like parry threats. And then, yeah, if you get an extra turn here comes the White Knight. But this is a little awkward, right? Like you play into Torrential, you play into Mirror Force. Let's see if he has it. He doesn't have it, and he's going to concede, and we're going to go to the next one. So, insane start from Swaggr. Lucker noob start, some might say, where you open up with Future Fusion, and then you just have great follow-up. I think his biggest mistakes there involved the Future Fusion sends, but he just kind of had all of the spot removal he needed to kind of carry his way through the game. Let's see how he does not opening Future Fusion, because that's more so what I'm curious about here. He sent me this replay, and he was like, hey, review it, check it out. And I'm like, you gonna send me a replay where you open Future Fusion? I mean, the deck does that, right? It opens it like, what is the draw percentage? Let's take a quick moment here. Let's go to one of the tools that I use a lot, which is the I believe it's the draw odds calculator. Oh my gosh, my browser is like, Keegan, you can't be operating OBS and fucking browser at the same time. So this draw odds calculator, the MTG Nexus one, is super useful. I use this like all the time to try and figure out like, okay, how often am I going to see this in my opening hand? Do I want to run more copies of it or whatever? Anyway, deck size 40, copies ran is 1, cards drawn is 6, odds to have 1. It is 15%. So he's 15% to open Future Fusion, which is roughly 3 in 20 games you open it. So not roughly, exactly 3 in 20 games you should be opening Future Fusion. And we just happen to see one of those 3 in 20. And then if you factor in the amount of times you have it on the chance, or not the chance, but the games where you win the die roll, then it cuts that in half, basically. So every, like 3 in 40 games, you win the die roll and you open Future Fusion. Which is, if you think about it, like 3 in 40 games you have an auto win, that is pretty fucking good. Like, that is something that I would say, like, should factor into people's consideration when ordering this deck on like a tier list or something like that. Like 3 in 40 games immediately winning is a lot of free auto win games. Anyways, to open Gold Sark or the Future Fusion, just to see where that's at, you're about 39.4% or roughly 40% to open up with Gold Sark or Future Fusion in your opening hand. So pretty consistent at seeing that card within the course of games that do run a little bit longer. And in Edison format, games generally do run a little bit longer. So with regards to sideboarding against Blackwings, I like to, let's look at this terrible screenshot one more time. I like to have as good a main deck as possible versus Blackwings, but you do need to sideboard in some capacity versus that deck because they have some cards that can be pretty brutal versus you. So I like to actually side out all of the cards that cost life points. As weird as that sounds, I do like to side out Solemn Judgment and Brain Control because this matchup ultimately dumbs down to like an aggro mirror, and you really don't want to be the person taking a ton of life points. Like, you want to be the person to have all the life points, and you want your opponent to be paying life points, and then that way, like, let's say they're forced to Solemn Judgment your normal summon, and they're paying 4,000 there. All of a sudden, their trap hole has cost them 4,000, but your trap holes have not, and as the game dumbs down, that advantage will matter more often for you than it will for them. I also do like to side out Trap Dust Shoot because this game or this matchup likes to go to top decking mode very, very quickly because your Icarus or their Icarus will trade with your cards and your spot removal will trade with their cards. All of a sudden, you're both on one card, and Trap Dust Shoot's just dead. So if you're going second, especially, you got to side out Dust Shoot. So Dust Shoot, Solemn Brain, they all come out. Lightning Vortex is kind of sus. I do like to side that one out as well. So that's an easy 4 cards out. You can bring in the 2 Trap Holes and the 2 Dust Tornadoes, and your deck is pretty much golden. You could also, in some circumstances, make an argument for Compulsory Evacuation Device over something like, I don't know, Call of the Haunted or, I don't know, Smashing Ground or something like that. But in reality, I think it's totally fine to just go with the 2 Dust Tornado and the 2 Trap Hole and keep it as simple as possible. Your main deck is already really, really well slated to beating Blackwings. Going second, you could make an argument for siding out some number of your Gold Sarks, but I think that card is just so good that it's like kind of hard to say whether or not you should side it out. It depends on how aggressively your opponent is playing, and I don't know. I think it's pretty easy to find 2 turns when you have so much spot removal to resolve Gold Sark, and Gold Sarking and being able to dig for Future Fusion or dig for whatever the fuck card is pretty important, I'd say. All right, so there's sideboarding here. Looks like I do see a Trap Hole there. I could be wrong about that, but I am spotting a Trap Hole. Trap Hole's pretty good against Blackwings because it's just more summon stops. Blackwings is, while a lot of people, it is, obviously I would say a lot of people would consider it one of the best decks, if not a top 3 deck in Edison format, as of right now. The deck is incredibly normal summon reliant. Like, if you look at a Blackwing deck, the only extension beyond the normal summon is Dark-Armed Dragon and having a live Vayu in the graveyard. So if you can just clip them at their normal summon, it does a shockingly large amount of work at controlling what the deck's output is. So let's say like your opponent normals even Sirocco and you Trap Hole it, they can no longer have a live Icarus, they no longer get their Whirlwind Searches, so that's already 5 cards that are shut off. And then on top of that, it makes their Oppression worse because if they don't have a monster, then Oppression is bad. So that's like, it's like slightly worse. And then Bora in hand, they can't special it. Gale in hand, they can't special it. It makes Bora worse if you have less monsters in play. It makes Sirocco worse if you have less monsters in play because the Sirocco pump effect becomes weaker. It kills Kalutes because they'll just have Kalutes rotting in their hand if you kill their normal summon. And Kalutes just a 1400 vanilla if you're killing normal summons. And having a 1400 vanilla in an aggro matchup is pretty bad. So clipping Blackwing's normal summon and like just saying, okay, you're never going to be able to resolve a normal summon is like a pretty surefire way of just beating this deck outright. That's their biggest weakness, I would say, next to something like Consecrated Light, I guess. I don't really know. But I think, yeah, as long as you have normal summon stops like Book of Moons, Bottomless, Trap Hole, that sort of stuff, and you resolve it on the Blackwing monster, then you're in a great spot. And even in the like crazy cases where they have like Solemn Judgment or they have My Body as a Shield to sort of defend their normal summon, they're still paying a shitload of life points. And again, in the aggro mirror, when you have a shitload of spot removal, maybe you even have another Trap Hole to chain to it. You know what I mean? As long as your opponent is losing life points, you're okay with any 1-for-1 exchange. It's always beneficial. Like, it's always beneficial to have 1-for-1 exchanges when your opponent's losing life points in this matchup, I think. Yeah, pretty much, yeah. Okay, they're shuffling up. I like Israel's sleeves a lot, too. I like the clear outer, green inner. It's very beautiful with his mat and his deck. I think it looks really sick. One of the cool things about covering paper Yu-Gi-Oh! Is you get to see people's like personality come out in their deck. Like you can see Swaggr with his all common deck, but he's also got like, you can see his tattoo, you can see like his sick mat, and you know he's a serious player because he's got a Spellgrounds and he's using the white sleeves. And he's so serious that he's got the all common deck. Anyway, set back row, normal summon Shura. So Israel not getting lucky enough to open Whirlwind in 2 games. Pretty unlucky. Let's go back to those draw odds calculators. So for Black Whirlwinds, if you say you run 2 Black Whirlwinds, what are the chances to open 1 or more? It's like a little under 30%. So a little over 1 in 4 games, you will be opening up with Black Whirlwind, which is just pretty unlucky that 2 games in a row he didn't get it, I would say. I would say it's like a roughly, I don't know the exact statistics, but it is pretty unlucky, I would say. Anyway, Swaggr, big thonkin here, big thinking, big thonkin. Space Typhoon, gonna nail the bottomless trap hole. And now this, imagine this scenario. You can see he's thumbed a DD Warrior Lady to the front of his hand. This is the exact scenario where if you don't have DD Warrior Ladies in your deck, something like Ashura plus Kalut can run away with game, like pretty easily. Let's say you normal summon a Drago or even like another dragon, like a Luster Dragon or a Blizzard Dragon or something like that, and you try to run over the Ashura and they have a Kalut. All of a sudden, the game is just over. All of a sudden, you've lost. You're in a losing position, and the Blackwing deck can run away with it. Whereas here, you normal summon DD Warrior Lady, and even, let's just say, even you do run over the Shura. Let's say your Luster Dragon or your Blizzard Dragon or whatever the fuck tech card you would be playing in place of the DD Warrior Ladies does go through. In that instance, you run over the Shura, and then your opponent has 3 Blizzards, which can immediately come down, bring back that Shura, and you're still in a losing position. So DD Warrior Lady is just kind of the perfect parry for Blackwings. You summon it, you banish the Shura, Blizzard is dead, Kalut is dead, you've taken only 300 damage, and then you can set some back row, and yeah, you've also, if they don't have lone set Icarus, summon DD Warrior Lady, plays through that. They can't, like, Icarus attack hit 2 of your cards because you only have the 1 DD Warrior Lady. So it's just so incredibly good in this matchup. He is eyeing that Drago. I don't know if he has a DD Warrior Lady in his hand. I thought he did. I thought I saw one, but he definitely has a D Prison. I'm not sure exactly what's in his hand. He's looking at that Drago like, do I have a monster to summon here? It looks like he's going to set, and he's going to set 1 back row and pass. This is an interesting moment to be in because it could be a Totem Dragon, right? But it most likely isn't. It most likely is a DD Warrior Lady here. That's most likely the card you would be setting. Now, the reason you would set DD Warrior Lady is you want to preserve your life total against something like, you would be taking 300 damage, basically. That's the only reason you would set DD Warrior Lady instead of Crash. I think that you would almost always want to Crash with the DD Warrior Lady if it is DD Warrior Lady because you don't want to give him a chance to find Icarus, set Icarus, pass the turn back, Icarus, your 2 cards in the draw phase. Then all of a sudden, his Blizzards are live, and you've got a DD Warrior Lady in your graveyard, which is fucking up your Totem Dragons. So if you have DD Warrior Lady, it's always attack. Literally always. It's never correct to not attack there. So if it's a set monster, all of a sudden you have to think, okay, maybe it's Totem Dragon, maybe he's baiting me with a D Prison, maybe it's a Masked Dragon, or maybe it's an Exploder Dragon, or it could even possibly be a Wyvern, or a set Drago if you don't have a dragon to reveal at that given moment, but you just don't want to miss on your normal summon. So it looks like in the hand, I see a Kaiku the Ghost Destroyer from Israel. That's a pretty interesting card. I think Kaiku the Ghost Destroyer going first is not bad because in those top decking situations, it can come down, it can banish Totem Dragons, it can shut off your opponent's Wyvern advantage. That being said, Kaiku the Ghost Destroyer's stat line is not super great in this matchup, but if it is a 6 card, like let's say it's the last situation you're in, right? Like you've got Kaiku the Ghost Destroyer and your opponent's got 1 card. If your Kaiku the Ghost Destroyer sticks, it's probably pretty good. So I don't think it's the worst card you could side in. I actually think it's pretty strong. I think people underrate Kaiku the Ghost Destroyer and how powerful it is because you think about it like in the circumstance of, okay, Kaiku the Ghost Destroyer loses to everything. True. But you want to solidify the position so that both players have very few resources and that your opponent probably doesn't have that everything that beats Kaiku. They probably have like maybe one of their few cards that loses to Kaiku in those instances. Anyway, he's going to normal summon the Kaiku the Ghost Destroyer. And so he's pulled pretty far ahead here. I mean, like having 2 normal summons in play it's obviously better than having the 1. He's also got a special summon Gale, which is really interesting. I don't really know why he would special summon the Gale right now. I think what you want to do at this instance is, because you've had the Heavy Storm to clear the bottomless, because you've been able to keep the back row open, I think also because your opponent realistically doesn't have a DD Warrior Lady, because the right play is always attack the DD Warrior Lady into the Shura, what you should do here is you should attack with the Shura into the set monster, because it is most likely going to be a Masked Dragon, a Totem Dragon, or an Exploder Dragon. So that's the play. The play is to just attack with Shura here. And then let's say it is whatever, a DD Warrior Lady. Even if it is a DD Warrior Lady, you get 3,100 damage in, and then you can make an Armor Master main phase 2 if you want to, or you don't even have to. And that's a great position to be in from Israel. So I think, it's just always attack with Shura. You could be thinking about something like what you saw last game. Those are cards that could be played in any dragon deck. You could also not necessarily be certain whether or not Swaggr is playing, whether or not he's playing Debris Dragon or like Snowman Eaters or something like that. You could be not super certain about that. And in that circumstance, you might want to like try to synchro to get through that. But I think even in that circumstance, just swing in with the Shura. If it's a Debris Dragon, just have it main phase 2 with Gale. You can always get over it next turn. It's not a big deal. Don't get too crazy with it here, I think. Because even if you do synchro, like you're risking it being like an Exploder Dragon. Or even a Mass Dragon is bad for you. So it looks like he's going to Shura attack. He's also got his hand on the Gale. I don't like this play. I think this play is a choke. Yeah, so this is exactly, if you're playing this type of dragon deck, this is exactly what you want to see. Why? Because if your opponent 2-for-1s themselves, if they go -1 into a monster, and you trade a back row 1-for-1 for it, or a DD Warrior Lady 1-for-1 for it, or a Smash and Ground, or like I said, you have a fuckload of spot removal. If you trade any one of those spot removal spells, or traps, or whatever, spell is a generic term here. If you trade any one of those for a synchro monster, you've accrued a massive advantage. So the Armor Master is going to attack, and that's going to run into a set DD Warrior Lady. So I don't like this play, just because even if it wasn't a DD Warrior Lady, if Swaggr had made the right play and just crashed the DD Warrior Lady, then this would have been this whole situation wouldn't have come up to begin with. But because of this circumstance of him going for this, let's say it wasn't a DD Warrior Lady. Let's say it was a Mass Dragon or Exploder Dragon. It's a terrible play to go for this. It is really, really bad to attack with the Armor Master. So I think that's kind of a choke from Israel. And that's going to banish the Armor Master. That's going to be only 2 darks in the grave for Dark Armed. That's going to be a dead value. That being said, if the Kaiku does die and hit the grave, that's a 3rd dark for Dark Armed. He's going to connect for 1,800, but there's nothing to banish, so it's not really that great. Israel's going to look at his hand. I can't really get a good look at what's in his hand, but he's just going to pass the turn back. The draw for turn is going to be, I believe, a Red Eyes Darkness Metal. And here comes normal summon Kawaki Mirror Drago. And this Kaiku might have been a little bit preemptive because, Swagger's still working with 4 cards. So he's still got 4 ways to potentially deal with this Kaiku the Ghost Destroyer. And he has one of the best ones in Kawaki Mirror Drago. And that Drago's going to lock out Blizzard. It's going to lock out Dark Armed. It's going to lock out any sort of like Greffer, Vayu shenanigans. And this is just why this deck is a tier 1 deck. Because if this Drago comes down and there's no out, the game ends, pretty much. It shuts off a large part of the deck. End phase reveals the Red Eyes. I see a Heavy Storm in hand, and I believe the set card is a Deep Prison. Now, there's a Solemn Judgment in hand from Israel, and he's going to have a set monster as well. He's going to pass the turn back. Drago's going to attack, and that's going to be a value. So what I think Israel was thinking was he was thinking, okay, I've got Mass Dragon or Exploder Dragon that I'm facing down. I'm going to swing in with the Armor Master. If it's Exploder Dragon, it pops my Armor Master. And then the value later on can level up that Armor Master into a Silverwind. But that being said, that is just not good. That is just objectively worse than just connecting with the Shura over that monster. Because if you connect with the Shura over that type of monster, then you get to summon out either a Kalut or another value from your deck. And then you can synchro main phase 2, Gale and Kaiku into Armor Master, and then Vayu and the Armor Master, that the negated value that you got off Shura, plus the Armor Master into Colossal Fighter. And then you have Colossal Fighter plus Silverwind. You have an insane setup if the Shura connects over one of those monsters. Whereas if it's an Armor Master, or not Armor Master, Mass Dragon or an Exploder Dragon, even though you do have the value to convert that dead Armor Master later on, it's still such a worse position than just resolving the Shura there anyway. Plus, it's so much better if it is DD Warrior Lady that the Shura attacks. So that all it takes, honestly, is one little mistake to be in a terrible position versus Dragons or Blackwings. These are 2 of the decks in the format where, if you make a mistake, you can pretty much guarantee you're going to lose in this matchup. That is, you're not as rewarded for your mistakes, or you don't get to come back from your mistakes as easily as you would think. Both decks do have ways to sort of like, you know, reward people for playing badly, like Top Deck Blizzard or Future Fusion, but generally speaking, if you mess up with these decks, it's pretty punishing. Another set monster and just passes the turn back. Looks like Swaggr did not side out the brain control. Once again, I think that is a mistake. I think you want to side out pretty much everything that costs you life points, and brain control is not a clear removal of a monster. You have no conversion for it in your entire deck. Like, if you brain a Sirocco, what are you doing with it? If you brain a Shura, what are you doing with it? You have nothing. You're just braining it to attack. It's literally just an 800 cost burn spell in this matchup. It's very, very bad. So, yeah, you generally want to side that one out. That's like a... I think that's a pretty clear... Why the fuck is it resizing everything? Okay, here we go. All right. Back to what we were talking about. Drago's going to attack again. That's going to run over Bora. And he's not going to set anything further. He's got a Mass Dragon in hand. He could press his advantage. He's going to read the Drago. He's checking the banish pile, or the graveyard. He's got a lot of Blackwing monsters in the graveyard. But yeah, Drago does outclass any non-Sirocco Blackwing monster. So if you don't have specifically Kalut, I mean, Drago's just, or Sirocco, which is, to be fair, 6 monsters in the deck. Also, Gale does get over it as well, technically. But his Gale was kind of thrown away earlier on. I don't know, man. I think Israel definitely could have won this one had he played a little bit differently around that circumstance there. He had the Heavy Storm. He had the ability to start pressing. He could have resolved something like very deadly, like an Armor Master uncontested, but yeah, just things look kind of tough. Another bottomless in hand from Swaggr. So at this point, Heavy Storm's gone. So not setting bottomless is he's conceding to Icarus attack. But you know your opponent's back row isn't Icarus attack. Because if it was Icarus attack, he would have Icarus blown up your Drago 8 turns ago. So not setting bottomless here is actually a mistake. You should definitely set bottomless, because if there's something like a Whirlwind normal summon Bora, then you want to bottomless that so they can't search Kalut. So definitely a mistake here from what the fuck happened? What is going on? Why is he texting now? What did we miss? What just happened? He's reading the Drago. Okay, yeah, we were back here. All right, let's see what happens. He's reading the Drago. Passes the Drago back. Looking at his hand. What happened? Why did it do that? Dude, Twitch is so buggy, I swear to God. Swaggr checking his phone mid-match. What is going on? What is happening? Just another set monster? All right. You know what? This is a fucking tournament final, Swaggr. What are you doing? Anyway, Drago attacks. It's going to run over another Bora. Reveals the red eyes, passes. Still doesn't set the bottomless. That's just disrespectful at this point, honestly. And it's a little weird, too, that Israel's been setting these monsters. I mean, it's like, are you just trying to buffer 1900 damage? Like, I don't understand. Like, don't you want to keep some of those cards in case you draw Whirlwind off the top? That doesn't, like, yeah, you can take 1900 here. Like, you don't have to keep throwing away card advantage to keep your life total that high. I mean, you do want to keep it kind of high, but you don't have to keep it that high, you know what I'm saying? Let's see. Does he have a play here? Heavy Storm. That is a terrible play. If there was a Starlight Road, he would have instantly lost. There was no reason to Heavy Storm there. So the reason you don't want a Heavy Storm there is because, yeah, if they have Heavy Storm, like, you're just instantly fucking losing. He just summons a Stardust Dragon, then all of a sudden, like, it's a stalemate. You can't out your own Drago to summon your Red Eyes, so you can never attack over the Stardust, and your opponent never has to attack into your D Prison. So I really dislike that play in case there was a Starlight Road. I think you can pretty easily just swing with your Drago. If he has a Mirror Force, like, who cares? Just Red Med, bring it back. And if he doesn't have like a Mirror Force or D Prison, like, then you're just crushing. You know what I mean? Then you're just connecting for 19. Force your opponent to do something before you're forced to do something. You're not forced to Heavy Storm there, basically. Yeah, I don't really like that. This is a lot of damage, and this will allow him to just set further back row, but yeah, I don't know. Those back row probably should have been set a million years ago. Anyway, draw for turn is probably not going to cut it at this point. I mean, he's just down 3 cards to 7, and he's down to 2200. Like, this game's just over. Draw for turn is going to be, it looks like Starlight Road. Yeah, card's gas. Normal summon Masked. Yeah, that works. Attack with the Drago. It's going to be DD Crow. He's got Blizzard. And yeah, DD Crow, not a card I'd like to side in this matchup. I don't think it's very good. Because post board, all they have to do to play around DD Crow is, well, first off, never find Future Fusion, and then DD Crow does nothing. And then second off, if they do find Future Fusion, they just send 2 red eyes. And then it's like, okay, you crow one of them, but then I just get another one. And it's like, you went, not only do I get a red eyes and a Future Fusion, but you went -1 too. So it's just like playing into what they want you to do. Kaiku, I think, is better because if Kaiku's in play, then the Future Fusion is completely shut off, shuts off all the wyverns that they send, and it can banish totems and stuff if it connects. But I think that DD Crow is pretty bad. Also, because Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon doesn't target, and it doesn't bring stuff back. Because it can special from the hand or the grave, it doesn't target. And so, like, if they DD Crow in response to Red Eyes, they can just bring back something else, or they can just special something from hand. It's like, it's bad. It's just a bad card to side in. So definitely came up to punish Israel there. I think he had the tools to win this, but an interesting match for sure. I wonder why Swaggr sent me this. There was definitely some stuff to review, mainly the brain control side in, the heavy storm usage there, the sends off of Future Fusion, and then there was some stuff on Israel's side too, like the Shura and the Gale and stuff like that. I don't think either of these guys are too familiar with this matchup, which is interesting, but that was cool. That was a cool match to watch. This was the finals of the tournament. Swaggr did go undefeated at this tournament, not only in matches, but also in games. He didn't lose a single game in the entire tournament, which is pretty cool. Actually, this isn't the finals. I think this is round 3. But yeah, he ended up going, I think 4-0, which is pretty interesting. Are the finals on here? Do we have the finals? Are they on here? Swagger's play the finals here? Is there a finals? Oh, it is the finals. I guess they get a rematch. Oh, shit. Oh, there's 2 matches. Oh, shit. Oh, shit. All right. No, wait, who's this? Who's this? This is the finals. Oscar on Gadgets. What the fuck? I guess we get to watch him play against Gadgets, too. All right. Interesting. Two for one feature. All right. Let's get into it. Snap. I didn't think there was 2 matches on here. I thought there was only 1 for some reason. But yeah, it looks like we got 2 matches on here. Swaggr versus, I believe, Oscar playing Gadgets. Gadgets is another deck that's like, I think low-key, like, pretty good against some of the, like, popular decks right now. Oh my fucking god. Twitch is terrible. Twitch's video player might be the worst thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Alright, they're shuffling up. Okay, cool. YouTube is so much better for, like, rewatching VODs and stuff. But yeah, here comes the die roll. Gonna be a 9 from Swaggr and a 8 from Oscar. But yeah, I think obviously winning the die roll is insane. This matchup I think is really interesting. I think this is a tough matchup for Dragons. I think this is not the easiest matchup, especially if you don't know some of the lines of play. Why did it stop? Why did it stop? Why is Twitch just... What is going on, man? This is so frustrating. Okay, looks like he's going to normal summon Mass Dragon and pass the turn back. That was so weird. It just froze. God, this is so tilting. Anyway, follow Totagon Plays. Shout out to him for streaming this, and he posts it on YouTube. He posts the videos on YouTube later on. So much nicer to watch him re-upped on YouTube. Anyway, normal summon Red Eyes Wyvern. That's probably going to be met with some sort of back row question mark? No. Wow. No back row. Nothing getting played. Huh. I did kind of spoil this because I did say that Swaggr goes 4-0, but let's watch the game anyway. Let's see what's up. I think this is a bit of an overcommitment here. 1800 direct. Either Swaggr is the GOAT at bluffing Starlight Road. Why does it keep freezing? Dude, Twitch, eat my ass, brother. Fucking Jesus Christ. Okay, there it is. It's probably just buffering or some shit. Okay, he sets one more back row and passes. That was either the greatest bluff Starlight Road ever, or Oscar just wanted to take 3200 damage. Anyway, here comes normal summon Red Gadget, activate effect. Interesting. Search Yellow Gadget. Is that how they work? How do you have 4 back row? One of them is probably Ultimate Offering. One of them is probably another like his own Starlight Road or Solemn Judgment. And so you've got those. If you're Swaggr, you're probably thinking about that. This matchup is tough because your spot removal doesn't line up super well, but your monsters are so fucking strong that it doesn't really matter because you can usually just kill their guys by battle. Drago doesn't do much in this matchup, though. That is one of the downsides. You usually side out one Drago in this matchup, I think. No, you might actually leave it in. I'm not 100% certain, though. You might leave it. You might leave in 2, side out 1. Anyway, here comes normal summon Drago. What is happening? Why is nothing being played? I'm not listening to the audio. I refuse. Looks like there's a giant Trunade in Oscar's hand. There's the Deep Prison. That didn't get played last turn. I think the life totals are also not up to date. Totogon slacking on the life. And then 1900 connecting. Deep Prison on the Masked. Why would he Deep Prison that? Maybe he's trying to stick a Fortress or a Gear Frame or something like that. Huh. Sets another back row in Passage. I do see a giant Trunade in his hand. What is giant Trunade for, though? There's a Cyber Dragon, a giant Trunade, and we know there's at least the yellow gadget. So that's 3 out of 4 of the cards in Oscar's hand here. Cyber Dragon can't be played because of the Drago, though. So Drago, unironically, in the one circumstance where it does work. I actually don't love playing Cyber Dragon in gadgets because it doesn't let you compound to the board as nicely as it should. He's going to try to special summon Cyber Dragon. He says, that's a light monster. You cannot do that. Get that shit out of here. Normal summon yellow gadget. Activate effect. I am pretty shocked Drago's doing the work. And it looks like Swaggr did have that Starlight Road. So he was just tempting. He was saying, if you've got Mirror Force, you've got Torrential, I've got this road, and I'm going to immediately win the game. That being said, if Oscar did have Mirror Force or Torrential plus Royal Oppression or Solemn Judgment, would have been a brutal 3 for 1, but at least it would have dealt 4,000 damage. Here comes Solidarity, and this is another piece to the puzzle and why Gadgets is kind of a tough matchup here. Solidarity gives them a constant stream of really strong monsters, and you're just eventually bleeding card advantage to the spot removal. That being said, if you can Gold Sark and try to find some type of OTK setup, that's generally your game plan. And then you try to save your Space Typhoons for Solidarity and don't Space Typhoon any of the back row blind. Solidarity is kind of like the premium one when you're playing this matchup. He's going to Rhoda for DD Warrior Lady. DD Warrior Lady will help him attack through this yellow gadget, but not anytime soon. Or maybe anytime soon. There's a Solemn Judgment. That's going to drop the DD Warrior Lady to the graveyard, so Oscar's down a shitload of life, too. That is something to consider here. He's at 1,200. All Swaggr needs to do is find Brain Control or Gold Sark, and he could steal this one, theoretically. He could also just, I don't know, he could shove here. He's got Red Med for the extension. I just don't think it's that great to do it into 2 unknown back row. Yeah, well, one of them's probably, well, you knew about the Judgment. You knew about the Judgment from last turn. And one of them could be Ultimate Offering, which would pose annoying, because that could keep Oscar alive this turn, because he can block attacks for 500 life points. But if he doesn't have Bottomless, then going for Red Eyes now is pretty fucking good. And it looks like he's going to. I don't hate this play because you can priority, but there's the Royal Oppression. That's going to drop Oscar to 400. He can no longer special summon, though. Special summon. He can no longer activate that Royal Oppression, though. So, not parrying the early aggression definitely costing him quite a bit. And there's going to be a Chain Link 2 Torrential. You can't Road here because then he can Oppression the Road. He's looking at his back row. He's like, should I trade this for 800 life points? And it looks like he's going to. I don't like that play. But yeah. Interesting moment where Oppression and Road kind of coming to bite you there together. But that being said, Oscar does kind of end up on top here. I mean, he still has the gadget, he still has the Solidarity, and he still has the Oppression. And he's still just doing his thing. He just bought a Torrential Tribute for 2 monsters in play, but they both replace themselves. So it's like, you got a free Torrential Tribute there. Here comes Normal Summon Totem Dragon. This is a lethal Totem Dragon, if it's not stopped. Holy shit. And that's going to be the game. Wow. So that early aggression, not getting deprisoned, not solemning those monsters or whatever, being forced to pay life points from the solemn, from the oppression, from everything, yeah, just added up to a moment in time where Swaggr could get those last few points of damage in, despite Oscar having nominal card advantage, nominal everything except for, specifically that one moment where he got attacked for lethal damage. And that's just kind of the scary part about the Dragon deck, is just how quickly it applies that level of pressure, basically. How quickly it says, deal with my monster or you're going to be at 0 life points. And that happens as soon as, like you saw there, turn 1. So another reason why I do like siding out the Solemn in aggro mirrors like this one, because once again, you pay those life points and you're just like, okay, I have 0 life points now. What do I do? If we're looking at the sideboard from Swaggr's perspective, he's got the 2 Cyber Dragons. Those are obviously going to be fantastic. 2 Dust Tornadoes. Those are crucial for dealing with Solidarity. That card is a headache. And then you've also got Pulling the Rug as a 3 of, and Light and Darkness Dragon as well. That being said, I don't love bringing in Light and Darkness Dragon alongside the Cyber Dragons, simply because your Totem Dragons are shut off the second Cyber Dragon hits the graveyard. So in this matchup, I like to side out 1 Drago, 1 Totem Dragon. That's the 2 places for the 2 Cyber Dragons. I like to side out Smashing Ground, because Smashing Ground against gadgets is fucking silly unless he's playing specifically Machina Fortress, in which case it can be okay. But generally speaking, it's not going to be that good until they've already landed the Machina Fortress, in which case you're losing. I like to side out Book of Moon as well, although Book of Moon can help you play through back row, so maybe not specifically in this matchup against the heavier back row, like Deep Prison heavy list. Maybe you keep it in as like a second copy of Space Typhoon. But I do like to side out the Smashing Ground, and then some number of the spot removal, whether that is Bottomless or Deep Prison or whatever, and then you just bring in the appropriate spot removal of triple Pulling the Rug and double Dust Tornado. So yeah, generally speaking, yeah, that's how I would approach this matchup. Back to the game. They are siding. Looks like he's got a large amount of that as well. He's eyeing up that Call of the Haunted. You absolutely do not want to cut that. Call of the Haunted is crucial in this matchup. It's very, very good in this matchup. Basically, all of your monsters that can attack over gadgets are good, but also all of your monsters that can wall out gadgets are good. You can be in a lot of circumstances where, like, you just need to buy a turn and you need to play around Bottomless. And so what you'll do is you'll just set a Wyvern, and then they'll attack into it with their gadget. It'll flip it face up, and now you have a big monster in play under the Bottomless Trap Hole. Same thing with the Warrior Ladies and the Dragos. And that's why I think Drago's actually not that bad in this matchup. Plus, we saw he does have those Cyber Dragons, but it's still the worst of your monsters, I believe. Maybe Exploder Dragon is worse. But Exploder Dragon can help you deal with Machina Fortress, which is a problematic card for sure. So definitely 1 Drago, 1 Totem comes out. Probably Smashing Ground, 1 D Prison, 1 Bottomless. That's the 3 Pulling the Rugs, and then the 2 Dust Tornado can come in over possibly 1 Road and 1 other Bottomless. I don't like siding out all the Bottomless because they can be useful. It's possible you want to side out Solemn Judgment, but Solemn Judgment is kind of interesting in this matchup, especially alongside the Pulling the Rugs, in that you can kind of play the same game plan you played against blackwings, where you just stop all of their normals and the deck can't really play. But that being said, like if you're forced to Solemn too early and then they just have like a Machina Fortress extension, you can just randomly die. So it's pretty risky, but I think it's like pretty necessary in this matchup just because it functions as a like Bottomless Trap Hole doesn't function as a summon stop, and so you just don't have that same critical mass of summon stops like you do against blackwings, where Solemn is your worst one. Solemn's actually your best one that isn't a Pulling the Rug. So it is slightly different. Has a little bit more value in this matchup. Plus Solemn can also stop Solidarity, which can stop your opponent from pushing entirely, which is pretty important. But yeah, generally speaking, the spot removal is like the worst cards. Like the Deep Prison, the Bottomless, they're the worst cards because like using those against gadgets is like fucking silly. And then the best cards are like the monsters because they outclass the gadgets and they kind of make the gadget card advantage irrelevant. And the Dust Tornadoes to kill the Solidarities, and the Cyber Dragons to come back if your opponent has gotten too far ahead. Those are the key cards, I would say. Got to be careful of Cyber Dragon though. I've found that a lot of Machine players lately have been moving to punish the Cyber Dragon side in. And while the Cyber Dragon side in from a Totem Dragon deck is not too anticipated, it's still something that has to be on your radar because simply I have used it in my sideboard, and people who copy Dragon decks are very likely to copy my list because it's a good list. So, yeah, it should be something that he's considering. So you can get into awkward situations where like you'll have like a gadget in play and you'll special the Cyber Dragon to try and clear the gadget, and he'll like compulse his gadget, and then you 2-for-1 yourself, or 3-for-1 yourself in a lot of cases. So yeah, Oscar does get to go first. He does get to get his summon in under pulling the rug, which is pretty important. If we're looking at the hands, it looks like there is a Cyber Dragon in the hand, a DD Warrior Lady, a White Knight, and a Red Med. I'm not really sure the rest of the cards. There's a D-Fissure, and that's a crazy card to have. So once again, anticipating those Cyber Dragons. This is not something I even anticipated out of a Machine and Gadget deck, especially one with Solidarity. He does get a Machine in the graveyard first, which is very good for him because that means Solidarity is still gonna be live. And yeah, D-Fissure is just really fucking strong here. It completely stops you from going into Chimera Tech. He's going to go ahead and set his Warrior Lady, I'm assuming, and pass the turn back. He's going to attack. Warrior Lady is going to banish the Machina Fortress, and there's nothing you can do about that. That's in the damage step. Unless you have specifically Divine Wrath or Forbidden Chalice. But no, that's just going to be a really, really strong 2-for-1. And DD Warrior Lady, honestly, just putting in all the work it needs to. Gonna set another back row here. Normally this would be a very terrifying setup, but because of the spot removal, you can kind of just like poke holes in your opponent's strat. He's like, oh, you only have one monster? It's gone now. And that's how this Dragon deck works, is you look at what your opponent's got, you look at what they're working with, and then you take away the key cards. And then the rest of their strategy kind of falls apart while you're beating them to death with dragons, basically. And it becomes a favorable situation for you. He's got a Totem Dragon in hand. I don't know if he's got any other back row here. He's got, I think that's a Red Eyes Wyvern. So what I would do here if I was Swaggr is I would just say, you better top deck a monster. I'd probably set a Totem Dragon. And then try to tribute summon White Knight Dragon. That being said, he did top deck a Breaker. Breaker's really good. But Breaker does conflict with Solidarity. That is really good draw here, though. That's going to make it really difficult for Swaggr to play. He's going to set a back row. That is insane. What is it, Dust Tornado? Like, why would you do that? If you're Oscar, you just attack. Yeah, you just say, fuck it, back row isn't real. Or it's chainable. It's like a Dust Tornado or something. What's the card in hand? He's going to pass. Draw for turn is Red Eyes Wyverns. He's got 2 Wyverns in hand. Really, really bad draw here from Swaggr. D-Fissure absolutely cucking his strategy. Here comes normal summon Totem Dragon. I don't love this, but I guess you can go special Red Eyes and then priority activate to try and bring out White Knight. You would definitely want to special the Red Eyes in defense, though, because you're playing around Mirror Force by going special White Knight in attack, and then you're attacking with White Knight to play through Deep Prison. You could special it in attack to play around bottomless Deep Prison, but yeah, that's going to be the Solemn. So if Heavy Storm is found here, Oscar better have Starlight Road. Here comes special summon Cyber Dragon. Red Eyes Darkness Metal force the Solemn, and he's just going to pass the turn back. I don't hate this, deciding not to play into Deep Prison. I actually don't hate this all that much. But now if he goes Breaker Pop and your back row is Dust Tornado, you can't dust the D-Fissure. Not that I think it really matters at this point, but he's going to Breaker attack and then replay attack for 1900 after compulsing the Cyber Dragon. Interesting choice. Sets the back row that looks like Space Typhoon from Oscar. I mean, that's going to drop Swaggr to 2300. So if Oscar has another piece of spot removal, Gold Sark being the draw, not a good draw when your back is to the wall functionally. Special summon Cyber Dragon. You can Gold Sark for Heavy Storm now, but that means you're not going to top deck it. So what you want to do is you want to Gold Sark for something that's not going to be a great top deck now, but in 2 turns. He's going to attack, and that's going to run into Mirror Force. Normal summon Red Eyes Wyvern just to protect the life total. Banish. Oh, banish for Red Eyes. Looks like he drew another Red Med. He's going to activate Red Med. Special summon White Knight Dragon. And this kind of holds. This kind of holds. And here comes the Gold Sark. I'm not really sure what you Gold Sark for at this point. It's possible you just go grab another follow-up summon. Maybe like a Drago or something like that. Maybe another Cyber Dragon even. Cyber Dragon would not be a bad search here. Or you could just grab Heavy Storm with the intent of surviving a few turns. I think Heavy Storm might be the play. Brain Control is also not bad to search for, but that would imply that you're going to have 800 life points. Swaggr should be at 2,300 here. The life totals are just not up to date. So if he takes another hit, the Brain Control becomes dead. But he is going to search for Brain Control. I don't hate searching for Brain Control because if things go according to plan, it should win you the game here. Your opponent needs to have like double Smashing Ground for this to be really a problem. We know one of the back row is Space Typhoon, and that's kind of superfluous because the Breaker can pop the back row anyway. He's also got Giant Trunade still in hand. Not a card I think is very good in gadgets. I think it's kind of bad. Maybe there's a way to set up like a limiter removal OTK, but I feel like gadgets naturally play into every single back row so well that you just don't need Giant Trunade. Like, Giant Trunade just doesn't do it for me in this deck. Probably, if you're watching this, Oscar, cut Giant Trunade. That would be my advice. He's going to go ahead and Breaker pop the back row. It's going to be Call of the Haunted, so completely dead card, just trying to bait that Breaker pop. Smart of Oscar to never pop it until this moment in time. But also smart of him to pop it at this moment in time. Force the back row before, and then set your back row after in case it is a Dust Tornado. Mirror Force is gone, so there's really nothing stopping you from attacking with White Knight Dragon here. There's like actually nothing in the game. You can just attack with White Knight Dragon here, and it's totally free. Attacks with Red Eyes instead. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But White Knight's going to connect for 3k. Oscar's going to drop down to 1,000. And Swagger's going to get his Brain Control next turn. Really interesting game. Not able to find a gadget. And never really able to sort of get an advantage going. Adds the Brain Control to hand. And what is the play? He's got a Dust Tornado. I think you just make the same play you made last turn. Oh, shit, it's Dyna. That's a really good Dyna. That is a really good Dyna. But Oscar's at 1,000. Swagger's at 2,300. Life totals are not updated for Swaggr here. Here comes Giant Trunade. He could chain Dust Tornado here, hitting the D-Fissure. And that would make it so his Cyber Dragon could come back. And I think that that is the play. I think you want to hit the D-Fissure. Yeah, hit the D-Fissure for sure. I would say. Don't roll a dice here, Swaggr. Just hit the D-Fissure. Dude, he's such a gambling man, I swear to God. I swear to God. He's such a gambler. He's like, one of these cards isn't real. You wouldn't roll a dice here anyway. Because you know all of the back row. They didn't stop Red Med White Knight. So they're not real. You just hit the D-Fissure. It's probably like Ultimate Offering or something. Oh my gosh. It was a limiter removal. Well, that was an insane snipe. Because that could have been lethal damage. Swaggr is at 2,300, I believe. Here comes Gear Frame. Yeah, the limiter removal would have been lethal. That is crazy that he sniped it. That is insane. Gambling pays off. Keep gambling, I guess, is the moral of this story. That's insane. What a looker. Oh my God. He must have known. He must have known. See, I'm working with perfect information here. And I'm thinking he probably just Trunaded to play around like a pulling the rug, right? That's what I'm thinking. He doesn't have the limiter, but he knew. He fucking knew. That's crazy. Swaggr should be low enough where brain control doesn't do anything now. Because he took the... He should be lower than this. I think he took one breaker hit too few off the life total. He should be at 500. That's why he's not looking at that brain control, really. Although, I think the best bait play is normal Wyvern, actually. If you normal Wyvern, then it baits bottomless. Here comes Cyber Dragon. Yeah, because if you can't activate the brain control, then Wyvern is better to bait the play with. Here comes normal Wyvern. Mirror Force is gone. There's going to be the Cyber Dragon attack. That is going to be game if he can't stop this. And he cannot. What were the back row? I'm like looking. There's a spell card in there. One of them was a Typhoon. I just don't remember what the other card was. I can't believe he sniped it. That's crazy. I would have not gone after the back row. I would have hit the D-Fissure and I would have lost that game. But that's pretty crazy. That was a crazy match. The Dino was crazy good. No, that was a lot of back and forth. That was sick. That was actually nuts. I'm like still processing it a little bit. But as you can see, the Dragon monsters, despite the gadget deck being able to put together card advantage much more easily, the Dragon monsters are such high quality that they naturally give you that card advantage anyway. Like over the course of a game. Or they give you that pressure, or that like you force your opponent to play in a certain way. To the point where like, sure, you can have your +1 gadget, right? But you're also going to be at 1,000 life points, and I'm getting a brain control in 2 turns. So I don't really care that you have 6 more cards than me. You know what I mean? Like that is the strength of this deck, is that your monsters are just so much better than your opponents that you can invalidate their card advantage. And then you can use your spot removal to sort of pick apart the parts where they maybe have a stronger monster, like we saw the Armor Master in the Blackwing game, or in this game, the Machina Fortress. Your opponent will oftentimes have to commit more than 1 card to make something that is better than a Red Eyes or a White Knight Dragon. And when they do that, it plays directly into your spot removal, and it lines up very poorly against DD Warrior Lady. So really interesting tournament that Swaggr played in, and I think it's pretty cool that these games are up. I would love to watch more of him playing Dragons in the future. I'll message him and see if he wants to like record a video with me or something like that. And if you guys want to see more Dragon action from Swaggr, let me know. I'll hit him up. I'll be like, yo, come on the channel, do some stuff. But that game was really interesting. There was a lot of lines of play there, and I think the Dust Tornado Gamble was a really, really strong player moment from Swaggr that I maybe would not have recognized. Swagger's probably played against Oscar a bunch. He probably knows that when this True Nade is coming, there's also a limiter down there. Best to try and snipe it and have a chance at winning the game, as opposed to just hitting the D-Fissure and then like pretty much guaranteedly losing. Plus, like, one thing that I was not taking into consideration, well, 2 things actually. The first thing would be like Oscar's like body language. I can hardly see him, and it's possible when he saw the True Nade, he maybe played it a little bit quickly, like, oh, I have the game now, and Swaggr might have recognized that and been like, okay, I need to Dust Tornado a back row here because he could have limiter. And then another thing I'm not taking into consideration is the entirety of the game up until that point, he had not used a single one of those back row. And so in Swagger's mind, he's probably like building this case where he's like, okay, so what could those 3 back row that he's never used possibly be? Ultimate Offering, sure. Starlight Road, maybe. Royal Oppression, no, that isn't it because he would have oppressioned the Red Eyes. Space Typhoon, maybe. So there's only like 3 options that aren't specifically limiter removal that could have been used there. And so that means that there's a really good chance that one of those back row is limiter removal because he never really got a chance to activate a limiter removal up until that point because he never really had machines to work with. So, definitely a great play there from Swaggr and a really cool match. Anyway, thank you guys for tuning in. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.